Titans are known for their unrivaled strength in the world of Attack on Titan. This strength has allowed nations and countries that control them to put the rest of the world under their feet, since no one seems to be capable of standing up to these biomecha-like marvelous gigantic beings unless they're Titans themselves. Different Titan shifters often have different abilities within a military, making them specialists in their own fields. This creates the need for a mighty defense in battle that will protect its nation or team against the enemy's attacks by blocking and intercepting them. And this is where the Armored Titan comes into play. Designed to be way more durable than every other Titan, with naturally hardened and impenetrable armor that envelops its body, this Titan is used as the shield of Marley. But how does it become this shield? What sets it apart? How can one break this shield down? Stay tuned for the rest of this video to have every question answered in detail as we break down the nitty-gritty of the Armored Titan's anatomy and abilities. The creation of the Armored Titan. How did it come into existence? The Armored Titan originates from Ymir Fritz's foundling Titan. Back when Ymir used to be the only Titan and had passed away, the tyrannical King Fritz wished for the continuation of the power of the Titans. For this, he had their 3 daughters consume Ymir's innards and spinal fluid, which started the passing down of the Titan powers from generation to generation. Time went by, and eventually, 8 other Titan shifters aside from the founding Titan were born. While Fritz and the royal family kept the founding Titan within their bloodline, the other noble families of Eldia kept a Titan shifter each. The Armored Titan was one such Titan shifter. However, its creation wasn't some sort of Eldian magic or mystical Eldian physics. They're created by Ymir herself over and over again. Now, Ymir's physical body has died quite some time ago. During her life, she had the mindset of a slave, dedicated to the unwavering servitude of her enslaver and husband, the Eldian King Fritz. She could have escaped after gaining the power of the Titan, or even taken the king down. There were several roads that would have led to her freedom. However, having lived her life in enslavement for so long led to her returning to the king who had put a hit out on her, and in a very Stockholm Syndrome fashion, she fell in love with him. Because her powers were unrivaled, the king married her to essentially use them in battle and to expand the nation of Eldia. Despite all of this, Ymir was aware that her relationship wasn't the greatest romance and that she was in a terrible headspace. She wanted to die. So, when the king was about to be assassinated, she took the shot to defend him and didn't regenerate herself even when she could. She still loved and wanted to serve him though. She also had 3 daughters whom she presumably harbored concern for, and rightfully so. As a result, her death did not result in the release of her soul, and the Titan power made matters worse as she got stuck in a dimension called the Paths. This realm was essentially a cold desert with a coordinate that represented Ymir herself. But let's circle back to the creation of the other Titans to understand the value of the Paths and how it's relevant to the creation of the Armored Titan. Let's assume the Titan powers of the shifters weren't passed down by making future generations consume the previous shifter. In this scenario, the powers wouldn't cease to exist. Instead, the powers would manifest in the first baby to be born after the inheritor's death. However, this can't be any random baby. It has to be somebody who has descended from Ymir. Because of the consumption practice, several Eldians possessed Ymir's genetics to an extent which made them capable of hosting a Titan shifter or becoming a pure Titan, considering their progenitor is the first ever Titan. These people are known as the subjects of Ymir. So how does this connect to the Paths? We know that Ymir is the coordinate in the Paths. With the creation of more and more of her subjects, the coordinate begins to branch out like a tree. Fun fact, the tree actually parallels Yggdrasil, or the Tree of Life from Norse mythology. In fact, the Titans are inspired by the giants from Norse mythology. The first giant in said mythology was a frost giant named Ymir. But the point here is that the coordinate creates a tree which represents the lives of every subject of Ymir. As the progenitor, Ymir Fritz gets access to all of her subjects via her coordinate, and by extension, so do the future founding Titans, until Karl Fritz comes up with his anti-war vow. Now, due to Ymir's access to her descendants, she can manipulate their anatomies. She can mess with their memories, change their bodily structures, and so on and so forth. On top of that, every Titan that manifests after a person shifts, or the more misshapen pure Titans that we see, are a result of Ymir physically creating them. She uses the sand or earth in her realm and molds them for long periods of time to create the Titan bodies. Because time is significantly slower in the Paths, Ymir might take months or even years to create a single Titan from scratch, but it will feel like a few seconds in the physical world. When a Titan shifter self-harms to turn into a body, their body is almost instantaneously generated. However, the original process of creation is significantly significantly slower in the paths. The same applies for regeneration in the case of every Titan, as well as the human bodies of a shifter. Naturally, this is exactly how the Armored Titan is created, but he also has his entire shtick of being armored, unlike the other shifters. This armor is the hardening that exists all over its body, making it the best Titan when it comes to defensive situations. It's the shield that contrasts with the attack Titan, which is the spear. This is precisely why the Armored Titan Reiner is made to mirror the attack Titan Eren within the story's narrative, and the results are fantastic. This particular armor possessed by the Armored Titan is a type of hardening, similar to the walls that protect Paradise Island, but it's also something that the shifter can control themselves without the interference of a royal inheritor of the founding Titan. Of course, it possesses the basic powers that every Titan shifter has, such as regeneration, enhanced strength, durability, human sentience, and an inability to die unless the nape is sliced off. But there are a lot of things about the Armored Titan that sets it apart from its peers. So let's break down its anatomical abilities in greater detail. Because Reiner is the only Armored Titan that we know of, we're going to be referring to his character while talking about this Titan. How does the Armored Titan use its height advantage in infiltration and battle? The Armored Titan is 15 meters tall, just like Eren's attack Titan. His height per se has never been his advantage in battle against other Titans or soldiers with the ability to fight Titans. However, we get to see its advantages when Reiner goes against random civilians at the beginning of the show, or when he fights the Mid-East allied forces for the Marleyan army in the first arc of Season 4. In the first instance, he kicks open a gate on Wall Maria, which was created within the hardened wall. While he couldn't kick and break the wall, he could do so with the gate once the outer wall had already been taken care of by the 60-meter tall Colossal Titan. Reiner's height, which makes him taller than most pure Titans, and his physical strength, which is generally amped by his hardening, allows him to quickly destroy the huge gate. This creates a situation where pure Titans infiltrate Shiganshina, which eventually leads to the death of Eren's mother. During the battle against the Mid-East allied forces, Reiner goes against the opponent's naval fleet and anti-Titan artillery. While the naval fleet attacks, Reiner's huge build and resistance allow him to withstand all of their attacks while protecting Zeke and the warrior candidates on the front line, such as Gabi, Falco, Zofia, and Udo. Against the anti-Titan artillery, he drags his huge arm across the rails the artilleries run on and begins to cause destruction while taking damage from the opponent, which he resists with his hardening. To be fair, his bigger size makes it easy to target him because there's not much you can miss, but considering the fact that his job is literally to intercept attacks and act as a shield, his becoming the target isn't a problem. He wouldn't have been able to intercept so many attacks if he wasn't so tall and huge, because many of them would have just missed. And he needs to intercept these attacks because he can handle them better than the other Titans. Why are the Armored Titan's muscles always exposed? Muscle exposure on Titan shifters is often a choice made with character design in mind. It's mostly an aesthetic thing rather than a hard requirement. The attack Titan is covered in skin because it just looks better and more humane that way. The female Titan is partially skin and partially muscle because the muscle exposure prevents the Titan form from being overly sexualized. The Colossal Titan is exposed because it wards off the enemy by letting out steam from its muscles, so it doesn't make sense for it to have skin. As a Titan that's covered in hardening, Reiner's Armored Titan also doesn't need to have skin. Bear in mind that Ymir spends months creating every Titan, so she has to cut time in some places. The Armored Titan doesn't need skin, so Ymir doesn't give it skin. This saves her time, plus it makes a cooler design for the Titan. The reddish musculature contrasting against the ochre-hardened armor also gives the Titan a more menacing look, allowing it to be the opposite of Eren's attack Titan. Isayama does everything with intention, so surely his giving exposed muscle to Reiner's Titan is not only a design choice for a cool appearance, it contrasts with the more humane-looking attack Titan, who we see as the good guy during the first 3 seasons, while Reiner is perceived as the villain who betrayed his friends. In Season 4, Eren is presented as the cold, ruthless anti-hero, while Reiner is the depressed person who regrets his actions while having been in a position where he had no other choice. That's not to say the attack Titan doesn't look sinister though. Okay, so this might be a reach, but Reiner's Titan looks more human in Season 4 than it did in the last 4 seasons. While the Titan does resemble Reiner to some extent, the audience didn't put 2 and 2 together with the reference to the Armored Titan's identity in Seasons 1 and 2 as easily as they did for Annie's female Titan. Annie and her Titan looked eerily similar, and it was kind of hard to miss. In Season 4 though, we see the Armored Titan look extremely similar to Reiner, especially in the scene where he had almost entered a vegetative state after protecting Falco after Eren attacked Liberia. Meanwhile, the attack Titan, which always looked menacing, got a more terrifying look. Overall, the exposed muscles seem to be a combination of narrative-centric factors plus a time-saving tactic for Ymir. How hard is the Armored Titan's skin? Can it withstand ultra-hard steel? The Armored Titan's skin is about as hard as you'd expect Titan hardening abilities to be. If a Titan raw punches the Armored Titan, the latter won't take any damage. The former will. The same applies to kicks and other kinds of blows. If a Survey Corps member tries to attack the Armored Titan with their swords made of ultra-hard steel, unfortunately, it's just not going to work as well as it would against a pure Titan or the average Titan shifter. In fact, it won't work at all, as the blades will break upon impact against the Armored Titan's armor. This is why, in Eren's first battle against Reiner, Eren was not able to do anything as long as he was fighting with his fists. Eventually, Eren resorted to using jujitsu and martial arts techniques to grapple with Reiner. With enough force in his lock and Reiner's sudden lack of mobility to get away from it, Eren was able to shatter the hardening around Reiner's nape, proving that it wasn't impossible to get rid of the Titan's hardened armor. However, there is a good way to counter the Armored Titan while fighting offensively with kicks and punches. This technique requires the opposing Titan to have the ability to harden as well. Eren and the scouts notice that Annie's female Titan can selectively harden her skin to protect her nape from being sliced by the scouts. Zeke uses the same technique against Levi, but in his case, it doesn't work out due to Levi getting to him before he can completely protect his nape. Eren eventually learns how to selectively harden after he injects the armor serum into himself, which was previously possessed by Rod Reese. As a result, Eren hardens his fists and legs from time to time during the Return to Shiganshina arc while fighting Reiner, and it clearly works. He uses it again when he fights Reiner in Season 4, Part 2. This brings us to the differences in the types of hardening possessed by each Titan. Well, every type is similar, as proven by Hanji's research from when they matched Annie's crystallized shell with the matter from Wall Sheena. However, some hardening types seem to be harder to crack. The crystallization is presumably stronger. That is why Eren is able to crack Reiner's armor, but nothing could be done about the crystal Annie had created around herself for protection. Lara Tiber, or the Warhammer Titan, is also notorious for using hardening. She uses it to create weapons as well as to crystallize herself. However, the weapons she creates aren't exempt from being broken or damaged with force. The crystal she creates is. The only thing that can cause damage to such types of hardening are the Jaw Titan's claws and, well, its jaws. Reiner and Bertholdt were able to break Wall Maria with enough force as well. Meanwhile, Eren resealed the inner and outer walls by hardening himself, leaving behind a crystallized shell. This brings us to the fact that most of these Titans should not have the ability to harden, but they do as a result of experimentation. Marley would often experiment on Titans to strengthen them, which is why Porco Galliard's Jaw Titan has a mask and is way stronger than Ymir's Jaw Titan, who never underwent any experiments and looked like a Funko Pop. Annie and Zeke presumably used an armor serum like Eren to gain their hardening abilities. It wasn't something that they inherently had. However, it was created to be more refined than the original hardening. Zeke can also easily defeat Reiner, and he often does so while the two engage in friendly fire. Zeke can break off chunks from the walls in his Beast Titan form, and he can crush them to use them as pitching weapons. He can do the same with Reiner, which allows him to always defeat the latter without taking any damage himself. Reiner's hardened armor exists as a defensive shield, not as an offensive amp for close combat. He's referred to as the Shield of Marley for a reason. This also makes it impossible for him to win against Eren's Attack Titan, who is the Armored Titan's natural enemy as an attacking force. Without hardening, the Attack Titan beats the Armored Titan with martial arts and grappling. With hardening, the Attack Titan beats the Armored Titan using selective hardening to amplify its attacks and bypass Reiner's armor by breaking it, since the crystallized hardening has quite literally been created to be stronger than the average hardening. How does the Armored Titan compensate for its lack of speed? Why does this double as a weakness? All that armor over the Titans slows it down by making it heavier. Defense-oriented weaponry in general is supposed to be comparatively heavier to withstand attacks and act as a shield. The Armored Titan's job is also to defend Marley, because in the battle against the Mid-East Allied forces, we see how Reiner takes the hits while Zeke attacks the opponents. However, the situation changes in Paradise, where Reiner has more on his shoulders. Originally, Reiner was supposed to infiltrate the walls with not just Bertholdt and Annie, but also Marcel Galliard, or the Jaw Titan before Ymir. The Jaw and Annie would handle the attack for the team, the Colossal Titan would be its trump card nuke, and Reiner would handle the defense. However, Marcel was eaten by Ymir in her pure Titan form, and as we know, Annie had to crystallize herself after being defeated by Eren with help from Mikasa, who foiled Annie's escape beyond the walls. This took out the Marleyan team's attacking faction, leaving Reiner to fight against a Titan whose entire job was to attack and keep moving forward. He probably never expected the Survey Corps to be so effective against Titans either, especially with Levi and Mikasa being Ackermans, who are basically Titans in human bodies. Naturally, Reiner's speed is his weakness in combat. However, there is a way to compensate for this. Reiner can can unharden himself to gain access to greater mobility. He does this in his fight against Eren after his identity reveal, as he unhardens the armor on his legs and runs towards Eren with greater speed than he has shown before. But this also leaves him open to being attacked by a member of the Survey Corps, even if said soldier doesn't have access to Thunder Spears. This doesn't mean that without Thunder Spears, the Corps will be useless against the Armored Titan. Hanji compares the Titan to how old-school armors worked, where the spaces around the underarms, groin, and behind the knees were always left open and free to allow for mobility. Reiner's Titan also had an open space behind his knees, which Mikasa took advantage of and sliced with her swords, allowing Eren to hold Reiner in a deadlock when he would have never come out of it had it not been for Bertholdt. Can cannon fire affect the Armored Titan? Easy answer, no. At least not from the cannons that existed in Shiganshina during its fall, which they used to try to take down the Titans. The Armored Titan's entire job is to be resistant to such attacks. It's practically his bio on Titan LinkedIn. The cannon fire that can affect him is the one from the anti-Titan artillery that had been created to fight off Marley and its Titans by the other nations, such as the Mid-East Allied forces. In fact, its effectiveness against the Armored Titan helped the world realize that the time of the Titan rule, and by extension, Marley's rule, was coming to an end. Like the world outside the wall engaged in technical evolution to counter the Titans, the Eldians within the walls did the same thing with the means available to them in order to fight the Armored Titan. The Thunder Spears were invented, which had tremendous explosive power and could destroy the Armored Titan's armor. Its usage literally made Mikasa Reiner's worst nightmare, as she threw it at him from every single direction, be it on his body, his leg, his shoulders, his eye, and even inside his mouth, and every single attack worked like a hot knife through butter. What is the Armored Titan's consciousness transference technique? How has it helped him survive brain explosions? Now, Reiner has taken the most L's in the show. He's hardly won a fight, if at all. He was constantly thwarted by Eren, Annie, Mikasa, and Zeke, and even when he kind of won, it came to him at the cost of great physical damage or someone else helping him out. For starters, Reiner was considered to be less talented and capable than the other warrior candidates. Marcel's brother Porco was supposed to be the Armored Titan, but because shifters have short lifespans, Marcel advocated for Reiner to get the Titan because he wanted his brother to live a long life. Combined with his natural disadvantage within enemy territory and the eventual loss of his will to live, Reiner continued to survive because of the plot, so much so that he became known among the fanbase as the Plot Armored Titan. Although Attack on Titan is a super well thought out show, characters having plot armor in fiction is very common, and no one in Attack on Titan benefits from this concept more than Reiner. The greatest example of this will be his consciousness transference technique. We see this for the first time when Armin proposes a search of Wall Maria in Shiganshina, as he suspects Reiner and Bertholdt being close by, but in hiding. When Reiner's position is located, he attacks the scout who found him. Before he can turn into a Titan, however, Levi lunges at Reiner and pierces his neck with his sword, which would ideally take out the nape clean. However, Reiner counters this by transferring his brain functions across his body from the nape, making him immune to being killed by an attack on the nape. This also gives him the opportunity to turn into the Armored Titan, after which he goes back to his default settings. He then fights the Attack Titan, who dominates him. Things get worse after the Thunder Spears are used against him, as they prove to be more effective than Eren's hardened attacks, which he had already fallen victim to. With the spears, the scouts are able to tear through Reiner's armor on his nape and subsequently destroy his brain, but what they are unable to damage is the plot armor, which allows him to transfer his consciousness across his body once again to sustain himself and call for Bertholdt. In this situation, Reiner kind of becomes a vegetable, as his brain functions are scattered, but he's not incapable of action. For example, when Bertholdt asks him to lie down with his back up, Reiner is able to manage that. This also gives Reiner the time to heal his hand and brain fully, allowing him to return to the fight. Too bad he's demolished once again after Mikasa throws a spear inside his mouth, forcing his body to come out damaged and unable to do anything except be interrogated. Marvelous verdict! Because of this consciousness transference technique and the inherent possession of hardening without external influence, bar Ymir Fritz in the paths, Armored Titan is unique even among the Titan shifters. It's possible that the transference ability is not a plot armor and was always meant to exist, considering how the mangaka plans everything out well in advance. Because Reiner wasn't competent enough and yet became a shifter, he might have been given this ability by Marley itself, but then it wouldn't make sense for them to not give this ability to the other shifters. However, he is the one with the greatest durability, so it's not far-fetched for an Armored Titan to inherently possess such an ability, irrespective of who its shifter is. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that the Armored Titan is anatomically strong, or does he need to rely on others for his survival? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below, and thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.